Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted? Did you want me to talk about Jonathan Taylor? Is that what it was? Because I released a video about the Indianapolis Colts defense 2 days ago, August 22nd. And this was the day after the news came out about Jonathan Taylor. And you know what? None of you cared. Nobody watched it whatsoever. And I have tried my absolute hardest to stay away from this Jonathan Taylor conversation, really for a number of reasons. Number one, the Colts have been surrounded basically since the Andrew Luck retirement with absolutely nothing but negative press, negative news, negative headlines. It's been year of drama after year of drama after year of drama. We went from being one of the most prestigious franchises of the 2000s to what seems like a whipping pole for the rest of the league and the NFL fans in these past few years. So I tried to stay away from it for that reason, number one. Number two, we have right now during training camp, because we haven't gotten cuts yet, that's Tuesday. Why do we know that's Tuesday? Primarily because we know that's when Jonathan Taylor has until to get a trade done with another team. We have 90 players on the roster. Maybe Jonathan Taylor's number 90, 89 players? No, I'm pretty sure we have 90. 90 guys out there sacrificing themselves, putting their bodies on the line, trying to make a roster, trying to make this team better, and trying to make an impact for the Indianapolis Colts. And I don't feel that Jonathan Taylor, who doesn't want to play, despite the fact that he says his ankle's hurt, that he says his back is hurt. I'm not saying he's lying, but clearly something is going on. He doesn't want to play. Why should we be covering him? Is it just because that's the news and that's what's interesting? Do we have to talk about Jonathan Taylor? Because that's what it seems like. So I'm breaking my own promise to you. I am going to talk about Jonathan Taylor today, right now. And I was going to say that this will be the last time I do it, but clearly it might not be. So I'm going to talk about the number of different ways that this situation can go, because there's many moving parts. There's my opinion on the situation, but there's also the possibilities, and there's what's likely, but then there's just my feelings, right? My feelings aren't technically what's likely. So I'm going to try to kind of split it up a bunch of different ways and just give a holistic thought, in my opinion, as to where we are right now, because clearly I was supposed to do that despite the fact that I tried not to. I mean, screw me for having a little bit of integrity, trying to stand on principle. You guys did not stand with me. You didn't watch the video when I tried to distract you all from the Jonathan Taylor news. You wanted it. You wanted the drama. You just can't help it. So I'm here to now take part in the game. And then, of course, we do have a preseason game coming up as well, and the starters will be playing against the Eagles. The Colts and the Eagles, just best friends. I mean, this is a pretty interesting one for a preseason game, at least for us. The Eagles, I mean, they're on to bigger and better things, but the Colts are in a different stage in their franchise. So I want to talk about that after, of course, I talk about Jonathan Taylor. But before we get into it, let me just introduce myself real quick. If you've never been here before, my name is Justin. This right here is the Riding the Bench Colts cast. If you are here for the first time, welcome. I cannot be more grateful that you decided to click this video today. If you're a returning listener, thank you again. Welcome again. And if you have not subscribed and you keep coming back and you keep listening to me just yap in my bedroom about the Indianapolis Colts, now might be the time, right? But if nothing else, if you're enjoying this video, go ahead, just shoot it a like, and, we'll go on with our merry day. So let's get into my opinion, for starters, on the entire thing. I understand where Jonathan Taylor is coming from. A lot of you guys, and listen, mind you, I see both sides of it, but a lot of you guys kind of want to just dog on Taylor this entire time, like he's being a brat, like he's being an a-hole, and all this type of stuff. And listen, maybe the way he's handling it is that way, but his sentiment, his feelings, I believe, are valid. Are they rooted in reality? Are they rooted into what we know the NFL to be and operate like? Maybe not, but I think he does have a legitimate gripe, as I believe the running backs in general just have a legitimate gripe. Because the truth of the matter is that in an NFL offense, despite the fact that everyone says the running back stinks, when a running back is one of those factors in your offense, they are one of the best players on your football team for that, I don't know, 2 or 3 year stretch of their peak powers. That is true. And based off of the money that we see getting thrown around to other players in this league, it just doesn't seem on the surface, and really logically, if you ask me, to be fair to the running back position. Okay? But then on the other hand, if you're the Colts and this is the way things are structured, why would you want to pay Jonathan Taylor when you don't have to? After all, the contract was signed, it was negotiated, collectively bargained for, all of these things. So I understand the Colts' business sense here. The question becomes, when does the line get drawn? You know, everyone's just like, oh, business, business, business. And sure, business is about dollars and cents. We know this. That's the reality. At the end of the day, it's always about the dollars and cents, particularly when you're the guy that's writing the checks. So this I understand. But to pretend that ethics just do not cross into business at all, that to use any form of ethical values in evaluating a business decision and sometimes putting the money aside just a little bit, or at least just having the nuance to make it like that's immature, or I don't know, like people say, oh, Gen Z, the kids, you guys are just late, whatever the heck, you get my point. There's this idea that anyone who's complaining and wants more money is some sort of entitled brat, to make it as if you can't look at this situation and say, damn, $4.3 million. A guy, let's say by the name of Devontae Parker on the Patriots, who might be their third or fourth receiver, is getting paid $11 million a year for the next 3 years. Jonathan Taylor getting paid 4.3. If you can't look at that and just think, well, that is kind of backwards, and I could see why JT is upset, and then you're looking at the Colts who have run this guy into the ground, at some point, the ethics have to come into it. And what I'm saying is, have the Colts offered to bump his pay this season? That hasn't been made official. We know so little about what's going on behind the scenes that I can't say anything for certain. So it's kind of hard to really just come at one side or come at another side because there's so much that we don't know. All we could do is observe kind of where we think that you have a legitimate gripe, being Jonathan Taylor, where we think that Irsay and the Colts side have a legitimate gripe, and we could observe that, and essentially you could just pick a side, but there's truth in both of them, right? Here's the bottom line for me. The Colts are better with Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor would obviously help the development of Anthony Richardson. If you're to not offer Jonathan Taylor at least a bump in pay this season, and hell, just take care of him next year while you're at it, if the Colts have not offered that, to me, I don't care what anyone says about the money, this, that, and the next. If they had found a deal at market value and you're not willing to pay Jonathan Taylor that right now, with the state of your franchise, with the turmoil that has been going on, with the perception of this team to outsiders, which includes, people forget this, it includes players around the league. People think that players, and I'm not saying that players don't know more than me and they don't know more than like the average person. What I'm saying is maybe their players aren't as much in tune with the intricacies of everything because they can't be bothered. They're so busy being great and so busy with the work they're putting into being athletes. They're looking at it at face value. They're not looking at like Colts fans. They look at it with a little less nuance, like the national media. Do you think this looks good to potential guys coming in? Does that not have to do with business? Is winning not the business that the Colts are in? For me, if you have not offered him that, you're making a grave mistake, and you're really, what is it, spiking your nose to cut off your face? That's not the saying. You get my point. You're kind of, sure, you're playing hardball. You're trying to set a precedent, but you're kind of stabbing yourself in the ass a little bit. I don't even know if that's a saying. But if they've offered that, and you have Jonathan Taylor on the other side of things saying, no, thank you, let me look elsewhere, that's where things get a little interesting, right? And again, we mentioned Tuesday. The Colts have to cut down before Tuesday. There are 3 ways in which this can go before then. One, he actually gets traded. Now, I do believe there is a little bit of, hey, Jonathan, go ahead. If you want to see what someone else is giving you right now, go ahead and find out the truth that we all know, presumably or seemingly other than you, that there is no person in hell that is going to give you 3 years, $16 million, especially when they also have to give up some form of capital, whether it be a player and a draft pick, multiple draft picks. The Colts are asking for a first. I don't think they would get that just because I don't think anyone would do it and then pay JT the 16. If JT wants to exhaust those options, I think he'll learn a lesson. And I think that's where the Colts are going with this right here. So he can actually get traded, which I think is unlikely. He could get something worked out with Indy. Now, listen, the NFL is a crazy place, but that certainly doesn't feel, I mean, today is Thursday. Does it feel like a deal is going to get done by Tuesday with what we've seen? I don't know. I don't think so. Now, the worst case scenario is actually the one that I'm starting to view as the most likely, and it's that he goes on the actual physically unable to perform list. A lot of people see that JT is on the PUP list right now. You have to understand that there's a distinction between being on the PUP list in like training camp and preseason and then actually being on it come roster cuts and when you have to narrow down the roster to your 53-man roster. Right now, PUP is just a technicality, essentially. It really is just, hey, this guy's hurt. Let's not count him as a number against our roster so we can have another player in here competing. It is not until this moment comes on Tuesday where all of a sudden the PUP has some rules and regulations as far as when you could take him off of it. In this case, the first 4 weeks of the season, there would be no Jonathan Taylor. I believe in that situation, I might be wrong. I believe JT would get paid. So that's almost his most effective and only way to hold out and get paid. Keep in mind, if he were to just hold out, no injury related, the Colts, due to his contract and the way this has been negotiated, again, the reality, do I think it's a little slimy? Perhaps, but the reality of the situation is that the Colts do not have to pay JT a dime if he holds out without an injury. They could defer this all the way until next season, and then JT's is in the same spot, another year older, another year of his value being diminished, right? So the injury situation and that physically unable to perform list is the only way Jonathan Taylor is not going to play for the Colts and get paid. I also view that to be the most likely scenario. If I was a betting man, that's what I would be betting on right now, is that nothing gets done by Tuesday. And for some reason, these two sides can't get something done, despite the fact that it's in both of their best interests to just get some sort of deal done. Despite the fact that that's true, I believe we go through Tuesday and nothing gets done. Now, the wrinkle I just mentioned about the physically unable to perform list and Jonathan Taylor getting paid and all of these things leads me to wonder, is JT even actually hurt? And let me be, hold on, I don't want to be out of pocket here. I don't want to be out of line because I don't want to accuse him of just lying entirely about the situation. Let me modify that. Is he so hurt that he could not be out there on the practice field right now? Is that true? Or is this just some sort of bit and facade in this entire thing that's going on right now? That's what I need to know. That's what we don't know. We don't know anything. And that is another reason why I did not want to talk about this, because what can we possibly look at and say, wow, this is insightful. We have answers here. All we can do is wait and see what happens. In the meantime, it's literally just the same exact thing we've been dealing with for weeks, despite the fact that there was another headline about the fact that he could go search for a trade. So hopefully I was able to encapsulate that and put that in a way that clearly you understand what I'm saying. If not, that's on me. I have to get better. So now that we're through JT, unfortunately, we have to go back to that topic. Let's talk about the preseason now. And let's talk about what we should be looking for in this Eagles game, because this is an awesome one. I mean, the Eagles and the Colts, they are just in cahoots every which way. Jonathan. If the Eagles were to get Jonathan Taylor, side note, oh, goodness gracious, I don't even know how they would. That doesn't make sense to me. Weren't they just not able to pay Darius Slay short of some major restructuring this offseason? How can they possibly trade for JT and then also pay him the money? I don't know how that makes sense. Apparently, they've been aggressive. Besides the point, that would just be another case of these teams being in cahoots. You go from Frank Reich to Sirianni to Shane Steichen. There's a bunch of players involved as well. The Rodney McLeod situation. I mean, it never ends, right? So this preseason game right here, the Colts are looking at it and saying, we're going to put in our starters. Now, they're kind of keeping it close to the chest as far as who exactly that's going to be. Shane Steichen is saying on a case-by-case basis. We know Richardson's going to be in there. We honestly have to assume if Richardson's in there, most of the top weapons are going to be in there because I guess why start him if you're not going to give him the best chance? I mean, the Eagles are a real test. Now, we literally have zero clue. There's zero news, at least as I record this, that the Eagles are starting anybody at all. But if they are, I think the big story of this preseason game is going to be the Indianapolis Colts offensive line versus the Philadelphia Eagles defensive front because they have quite a bit of depth there. And I'm pulling it up right now. Now, we know the Jordan Davises and the Jalen Carters of the world, or maybe just I do. I'm more in tune with it because my buddy's an Eagles fan. Go ahead and check out the Eagles cast if you like. But you're talking about Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Kentavious Street is a decent depth piece. Derek Barnett was a guy who some people are saying caused a fight because he was punching it out of Richardson's hands. I mean, there's a lot of guys here. Would a Josh Sweat play? Would a Brandon Graham play? You just have to assume that a Fletcher Cox wouldn't play. But even if not the primary starters of the Eagles are going to have some good players up there on the defensive front. The Colts offensive line, let's see how they play. Case-by-case basis, I assume by Steichen, simply means guys that he feels needs the reps versus guys who he doesn't feel need the reps. So offensively on the line, I would assume at minimum you would get Bernard Ryman, you would get Will Fries, and that's at minimum. And we'll see who else is in there from there. Blake Freeland, obviously going to get a lot of time just because of the fact that he's the rookie, the tackle. They want to get him reps as well. So we'll see what it is. But let's see how this offensive line performs because the Eagles are a monster test. This is one of the most stacked rosters in the league this first quarter. If the Eagles want to come in and match the Colts and just say, hey, we're also going to play our starters, this first quarter may tell us everything we need to know about where the Colts are at. Now, listen, the Eagles can dog anybody down well, so I'm not going to sit here and make it like if we do bad, we're going to be 2-15. But what a test this is to see where the Colts stand. This is an interesting game, and there's a reason it's prime time. This is a cool preseason game. So we're going to see how that goes. And Lord, I hope that none of their receivers play. I don't need to see A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith versus our guys right now. Not with the secondary, with the way it's looking, particularly those corners. I'd rather that be left to mystery. Give me another week so I can see the truth about that. Because, listen, quite frankly, those receivers would absolutely cook us with Tanner McGee at quarterback, let alone Jalen freaking Hurts, okay? So we're going to see how that goes. All in all, let me wrap it in a bow and try to, get this thing to you. I'm looking for the offensive line play. If the Eagles starters are in, I'm basically just going to be closing my eyes while we're playing defense. It's kind of like you're watching a horror movie and you know that the jump scare is coming. Like, you can just feel it in your bones. You could barely look. You're like wincing. That's what it's going to be like if the Eagles play their starters on offense. But I have enough confidence in the Colts offense, enough optimism that I'll be very, very happy to watch the Colts starters or the majority of them on offense versus the starting Eagles defense to see where we're at. And that offensive line, once more, is the unit I'm looking at. So that right there's the episode. I'm going to end it quick. Like, subscribe, share it with a friend. Do whatever it is that you want to do, or do none of it at all. Thanks for staying this long. That was plenty. My name is Justin. This right here is the Riding the Bench Colts cast. And until next time, go Colts.